Hey everybody, how we all doing? I'm Michael, aka One More Time, and we're here to play some more Game Boy games here on the Game Boy-A-Thon, a series where we play every game released in North America for the Game Boy portable console. That's all 512 games, and we are on part 6 today with a really interesting set of games. P-Bug, by the way, says, if the Game Boy was so great, why is there no Game Man? That is a great question, honestly. Because even with the Game Boy Advance, it's still called the Game Boy. Maybe the Nintendo DS is the Game Man, as it turns out. It's called that in some random territory. Like, I don't know, maybe Senegal. But yeah, good to see everybody. Hopefully everything has been going well on your end. I am very excited about today's because today, honestly, I felt like it was likely that this was going to be kind of a boring episode. We have 2 licensed games, a puzzle game, and another game that's just kind of a little slight. And so I was thinking like, oh, this may not be the most interesting episode. But after doing some research into each of the games, it turns out there's a lot to talk about with every single one of them and things that you would not expect. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you all today as we knock out a bunch of games here. And we're going to end up starting with, honestly, maybe the hottest banger I've ever played. Hatris. So let's go ahead and get Hatris loaded up here real quick. Get everything set up on my end as well. All right, Hatris. This is a fantastic little video game that does not have sound. Now it does. Beautiful. Beautiful. Look at that man getting a lot of hats stacked onto his head. That's how you know that you're going to be in for a good time. So, Hatris is a game developed by Bullet Point Software and also published by Bullet Point Software. Released in 1990. Hatris is an interesting game because for the longest, I've known about this game for a while. And to be perfectly honest, I had always thought that this was a game that was kind of just trying to trade off the Tetris name. And that's not completely false, but it's also so much more than that. It is a legitimately great game. It is a game that is developed by famed Tetris creator Alexei Pachunov, as well as Vladimir Pokilo, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. I'm going to be mispronouncing a lot of Russian names tonight, by the way, so look forward to that. But first, let's just kind of go over what we have here. You can adjust your shops, which your shop level, which is how many hats are going to be dropping, different types of hats. Or I believe that's what that adjusts. It's either that or stage. One controls hats, the other controls speed. And of course, you got the hottest music. So the whole idea behind this game is that you have different types of hats, and you gotta stack these hats. And if you stack 5 hats in a row, you'll end up clearing them, and that will decrease the hat counters in the top right there. Now, if you can clear 2 stacks at the same time, you will get what's called a fire bonus. You get 3 fire bonuses, you get a special hat drop. If this sounds all ridiculous, that's because it kind of is. And it's this ridiculousness that makes me just absolutely love this game. You do not understand how pleasantly surprised I was to play this. Because honestly, I thought it was kind of a joke. But no, it's its own legit thing. And it is absolutely amazing for what it is. I sincerely cannot recommend Hatris enough. Yeah, it's ultimately a pretty simple game. But it's one that when I did my testing, I literally played for 45 minutes. So yeah, here's our samurai helmet. Samurai helmets, if you drop on a stack, will flatten that stack all the way down. The helmet will stay, In fact, I'll go ahead and demonstrate it here. The helmet will stay, and if you stack 5 helmets, you get a huge score bonus. So it behooves you to stack those as well. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's keep stacking some hats, and we'll get a little bit to some other things. But this is another one of those games that I feel like is just straight up perfect for the system. Like, it is a very simple puzzle game. Well, simple, but also deceptively complex, as we'll see when we get to later stages. But yeah, it's nice. It's relatively simple. Ah, I messed that up. Oh well, that happens. And you know, graphics are very, very clear. Pretty catchy music overall too. I really like the music in this. Go ahead and get that out of there. We need to work on clearing this mess over here. We'll go ahead and just stack that on there, because I do want to try to get another fire bonus if all possible. Dang. That's not going to fit all the way over there. You see, because you're trying to get fire bonuses, and sometimes that's a little bit harder to do. Hello, Gumakuma. Gumakuma says, howdy, OMT in chat. How's the hats? The hats are good. Oh, the hats are so good. Like, once again, deceptively simple game, but man, I can't help but like it. So another thing about the hats are different sizes, as you can tell. So, like, sombreros stick up a little bit more than the little beanies that we have on the left side of our stack here. And so this will dictate like where exactly a hat's going to fall and whatnot. So like, to give you an example, I could stack a hat on here and then still freely move this hat around. So you gotta pay attention to how high, like how tall the hats are. Hatress is also a really good game to make you sound like a crazy person talking about it. Like I was telling my girlfriend about this game last night, and I felt incredibly strange trying to explain this honestly kind of odd video game. Ooh. Don't hit down sometimes, it automatically throws the cats down there. Alright, I do at least want to get through one stage real quick. There we go. So once you get through a stage, you can sell one of the hats. Now you can only do it for each type of hat once, and it gets rid of all the hats on your board. You can also just pass, which is what I did there. And then no hats will go away. Oof. That's bad. So yeah, now we have top hats. Now we have to contend with top hats, which are very, very tall, as you can tell. And cannon will screw you. They absolutely will screw you over. Yes, there we go. Yeah, so we can just do this. We know where else to put those, so we're just gonna set those there. Drop that down there. Well, I guess this maybe is a good time to talk a little bit about Hatris and just in general. So Hatris was first released in the arcades back in 1989, I would like to say. And, you know, ended up having some considerable success. It ended up being ported to quite a few different things. The PC-88. Oh, this is a double beanie. You rarely get doubles like that. The PC-88. The Nintendo Entertainment System, TurboGrafx 16, and of course the Game Boy, which we're playing on right now. Let's do that. So, oh, that's about as bad as you could do that. So it's a part of a series of games that not only include Tetris, but also include games such as Weltris, Facetris, also known as Faces, and Wordtris as well. With some of these games being developed by Alexei Pachinov, designed, I should say, by Alexei Pachinov, and others just being developed by other people at Bullet Point Software. Now, while all of them would share inspiration from Tetris, once again, only Weltris and Hatris would actually involve Alexei himself. And, once again, this game got a lot of hype for being from the person who, you know, was the creator of Tetris. That was a big selling point for this game. And I think Hatris ends up being just a shockingly underrated game because of that. Like, it's just such a deceptively fun game. Such a deceptively fun game. Now, I do want to talk about somebody who's involved with this. It's a story that I'm going to just give a fair warning. It's not a very happy story. But it's a story that I want to tell regardless. And that's the story of the co-designer of this game, Vladimir Pokylo. Gumbakum says, does Hatris on the N64 belong in this line? As far as I know, it does not. That is has no affiliation at all, from what I understand. So, Vladimir Pokylo, just like our friend Alexei Pachinov, is also Russian, and was born in the former Soviet Union in Moscow in 1954. Now, not a huge amount is known about his life growing up in the Soviet Union, but he apparently was at least a standout in some fashion because he ended up going to university at Moscow State University, and he ended up graduating as a clinical psychologist. Now, good old Vladimir ended up specializing in using puzzles to help conduct psychological experiments, and from what I understand, also into just the general treatment of his patients. I don't know exactly what went on with these particular experiments, but apparently that's what he did. He would use simple block puzzles and whatnot. Now, the story goes is that as he was using puzzles and whatnot to help out his patients and conduct experiments, he ended up becoming friends with Alexei Pachinov, once again, the creator of Tetris. And the story goes in, I would like to say 1984, mid-80s. Let's just say the mid-80s. Keep it simple. Alexei came to Vladimir with an idea, a little prototype game that he'd been working on. And Vladimir was blown away by this. And he encouraged him to continue working on it, and even gave some of his own suggestions as far as some improvements he could do. That game, of course, was Tetris. And Tetris, of course, is inarguably the most famous video puzzle game of all time. Now, it's because of this you'll sometimes hear Vladimir Pokylo be considered kind of like one of the co-creators of Tetris. That's probably a little bit of a stretch, but he did seem to have at least some influence on it, and it has something that's been acknowledged by others. Now, we're gonna do that. Drop that there. Okay. So, now the story of Tetris involves all sorts of twists and turns that we're not going to quite get into here, because it's not as relevant to the overall story. But I guess just to kind of keep it simple, in 1986, it ended up being signed over to the Soviet government, kind of under duress, who ended up, publishing it for the next 10 years, up until 1996, when the rights would revert back to Pachinov. That fact will become relevant here in a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and pass again. In the meantime, though, both Pachinov and Pokylo's world would see quite a bit of upheaval. Because once again, this is the late 80s and early 90s. And if you know anything about your world history, you know that's not exactly a good time for the Soviet Union. During the 80s, of course, Mikhail Gorbachev was the president, or the premier, I should say, of the Soviet Union. And he introduced a series of reforms to help make the country more open. One of these reforms allowed for some level of private business, which Pachinov and Pokylo would take advantage of. And they would form a company out of that called Animatech. Animatech was formed in 1988 and would have both Pokylo and Pachinov kind of head up this studio. Now, as the Soviet Union ended up collapsing, emigration became a possibility for, your average Soviet citizen. And so because of that, Pachinov and Pokylo both ended up relocating to the United States. Fun fact, actually, Pachinov lives relatively close by to me in Clyde Hill, Washington, from what I understand. And Vladimir Pokolov ended up moving to the Bay Area, San Francisco. Now, the reason why he moved there is because Animatech had two offices. The primary office that was in Moscow, that had the majority of their programmers and designers, and it had another office that was in San Francisco. Now, Pokolov and Pachinov would continue to design games for Bullet Point Software, mostly owing to the fact that they were pretty close with the founder of Bullet Point Software, a one Hank Rogers. And that include games, of course, like Weltris and Hatris. Now, Animatech itself would eventually release games, though it wouldn't be until 1993, when they released their first game, a game called Elfish, a DOS-based game that was published by Maxis Software. Which, if you know anything about classic Maxis, you should know that this is likely going to be a simulator game. And it was. So this game was actually kind of neat. It was an aquarium simulator where you caught and raised tropical fish in an aquarium. Now, what was particularly neat about this game is that, you try to do your best to keep them alive and whatnot, but it used a lot of procedural generation to create, different varieties of tropical fish. Because you could breed them together, and you would create just, really weirdly colored fish, and, among other things. I should have really paid attention to what I had going on up there. How am I gonna do this? There's no good answer to that one. So, this game ended up getting released. And, from what I understand, it did, relatively okay. And, watching videos of the game, it seems to be, honestly, a pretty relaxing thing. If albeit kind of slight, as far as content is concerned. Which, hey, that's fine. Not every game has to be the most action-packed, in-depth, and deep game in the world. So there's definitely room for those types of games in the world. So Pachinov and Pokolov would follow this up in 1995 with a game called Ice and Fire. Now, you would think that this would be like another simulator or, I don't know, some sort of puzzle game, and you would be incredibly wrong. This game was actually a Windows-based PC game, which would make it one of the first Windows-based PC games if it was released since it was released in 1995. And the whole idea behind it is that you are flying in a spaceship that goes along pre-programmed paths, and you would land on, in certain, planets or whatnot, and then you would go in there and start fighting aliens in a first-person shooter environment. So, yeah, it was a weird first-person shooter, which is kind of, let's call it outside the wheelhouse of these two. It's definitely not what I would expect from them. And it didn't really seem to set the world on fire. Which, a little unfortunate, but what can you do, right? Alright, let's see. I want to just see what we can do with this, and... I'm not going to quite be able to get that down there. Where's the Kansas? Would you say it would set the world on ice? I think I would say that, yes. Now, this is unfortunately the end of the good times for Animatech, as well as Vladimir Pokolov as well. Because you see, a couple events are going to happen in 1996 that are kind of going to cause a significant upheaval in his life. And this is unfortunately where the story's going to get a little tragic. To start with, I just want to pass. There's nothing to do here. So, to start with, is that in 1996, the rights of Tetris reverted to Alexei Pachinov. Now, for the longest time, while Alexei Pachinov's name was on various Tetris games and whatnot, he's in the credits of the original for Tetris on the Game Boy, for instance. He obviously wasn't earning royalties on him. He ended up missing out on something like $40 million worth of royalties, I think that was estimated. And so, with these rights being reverted, he now had the opportunity to earn a ton of money, which he did. He and Hank Rogers ended up forming an additional company called the Tetris Company, which still exists to this day, to basically just help manage that license. And with that, he, and by he, I mean Lexi Pashinoff, decided to go ahead and leave Animatech. So, one of the greatest video game designers is now gone from Animatech, which is going to be a big blow no matter what. I am just murdering that stack there. So, not great, to say the least. But unfortunately, it's going to get a little bit worse, because around this time, the Russian economy just kind of went into a severe recession, if not outright depression. It's a little bit beyond the scope to explain exactly why that occurred, but needless to say, it was an incredible shock to the economy, and it's going to cause incredible issues for Animatech and Pocolo in general. A big reason is because the majority of the designers and programmers live in Moscow, and so they're going to be heavily affected by the economic downturn. This is going to leave them in an incredible bind, and since they're in this incredible bind, couldn't quite get that over. Since they're in this incredible bind, this means that, unfortunately, a lot of them are going to lose their job, and just the cost of development in Russia is going to shoot up as well. Now, because of that, Animatech ended up suffering quite a bit and started hemorrhaging money. And this unfortunately caused Pocolo a ton of stress. And he, unfortunately, basically lost his mind and became consumed with despair. There's no better way to relay the facts in the next part, so I'm just going to give them as plainly as possible. Because the next part is incredibly tragic. On September 21st, 1998, Vladimir Pocolo murdered his wife and son while they slept, and then killed himself. He did leave a suicide note, which I am obviously not going to share here. It is very disturbing. And after that, Animatech essentially ceased to exist. There's no real good way to transition from that. But it is a tragic loss of life no matter what, and depending on how you look at it, a tragic end to somebody's existence, to many people's existence. Once again, no good transition from that. So how about we finish up playing a little bit of Hatris here, and we'll go ahead and move on to something far, far sillier. Good old Hatris. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that now. I don't think there's any real good way to continue playing Hatris after that. So the next game that we are going to play is going to be a far, far sillier game. And that's going to be We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. Our first of two licensed games that we're going to be playing today. Now, this is a game that was developed by Beam Software and published by High Tech Expressions. Usually, when you see High Tech Expressions being involved, you're probably in for a bad time, and I assure you we are here. This game was released in 1993 to coincide with the movie We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. This is a bad game. Very, very bad game that attempts, and I really, really mean attempts, to follow the story of the flop We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, the animated film. You play as John Goodman's character, a T-Rex, whose name I cannot be bothered to remember right now, unfortunately, because I am a hack. And the first thing you're going to notice is that this game moves. This game moves far, far faster than a Game Boy game should move. I feel like I mention this particular fact every single time we do one of these streams, but the Game Boy had a very, very bad LCD screen, also you can't jump on enemies. It had a very, very bad LCD screen. That had a very, very... what would it be? Low refresh rate, I believe? A very low refresh rate. And because of that, anything that moved at speed would look very, very smudgy. Some games would use that to its advantage. This game, I imagine, is absolutely incomprehensible to look at. Now, luckily, we're playing on, via emulation. And we're looking at this on a modern LCD screen, so that's not going to come across here too badly. Like, this is otherwise pretty legible to look at. But I cannot imagine playing this on a Game Boy. Many people in chat right now are compared to Sonic the Hedgehog, and you would not be wrong. It is actually pretty amazing the game is moving this fast, because the Game Boy is not exactly the most powerful portable console out there. So, hats off to the people of Beam Software for doing that. It's just a little unfortunate that it's for this game. It should be noted that there is a ton of momentum, by the way. I am holding right here. I'm holding left. And there is a significant amount of time before you actually stop. I think the solution is to actually jump. Nope, jumping actually does not reset your momentum. It's, this seems like one of those platformers where you're gonna really need to memorize where everything is. If that completely blind jump did not emphasize that point enough. So yeah, honestly, first blush is that this is not a good video game. Especially since there doesn't seem to be any way to attack. Gamakuma says, this reminds me of Adventure Island in that it's on the Game Boy and looks like a memory test. Actually, yeah. Oh, okay, so you can attack. You just need, you need cards, which cards go away every time you take a hit. Oh, interesting. And by interesting, I mean very unfortunate. Huh. Alright, we got to the end of the first stage, though. Look how rad that T-Rex is. Alright. So let's talk a little bit about We're Back. We're Back is based upon the animated film of the same name. Once again, starring John Goodman as the main character, who's a T-Rex. Includes voices like Jay Leno and Rhea Perlman and whatnot. Kind of like one of the... I think it might actually be one of the first major examples of, like, an animated movie having, like, non-traditional voice actors. Like, just like celebrities doing the roles and whatnot. Oh my god, that's a very... That dinosaur looks like a lot more evil and realistic compared to our really dumb-looking dude. So, for those of you who have not seen We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, which, by the way, all 71 minutes of the movie, and yes, it's only 71 minutes, is on YouTube. If you ever want to watch We're Back for some reason. But then, to help y'all out, in short, it is... we just crushed that pterodactyl's eggs, and now it's helping us. I am supremely confused there. So it is a movie that tells the story of our T-Rex and his friends. And it's all told in flashback. Like, literally, the movie starts out with John Goodman, his T-Rex, basically golfing. And then a bird lands on his head. He decides to basically give him his life story. So, the idea is that a mad scientist hires an alien to go back in time and kidnap dinosaurs who are brought to the future, fed brain food to make them super smart, who then immediately escape and roam around New York City in Central Park. It's once again an awful movie. It was marketed as the family-friendly alternative to Jurassic Park, which was released in 1993 as well. Which, given how many kids I know, like, watched and loved Jurassic Park, kind of a hilarious marketing tactic that I could see completely failing. You cannot see any of the platforms, which makes this incredibly difficult to know where exactly you're supposed to go, where you're supposed to land with your jumps. Oh my. But yeah, ended up being a huge flop. And I think it was one of the last animated movies that had development, like, involvement from Hanna-Barbera as well. I wanna say. I might be a little incorrect about that, though. Now, this game is honestly nothing special, other than the fact that it moves incredibly quickly. Except it might also be an example of some of the laziest marketing and laziest marketing and repurposing I've ever seen from a video game. I think we're dead. Yep, time up. Well, let's try that again. Now, what I mean by the fact that this game is kind of lazy is because, would you believe this game was reskinned for different markets 4 separate times? Well, successfully 3 separate times, and there was an attempt at a 4th. So, this is not an uncommon thing with licensed games. Like, for instance, there was a game that was like a ninja game for the Nintendo Entertainment System that ended up being repurposed as a game about the character Noid for the the Domino's commercials. So, the classic Yo Noid. So, not exactly an uncommon thing, but what is uncommon with it is just how many times they changed things up for this one. So, We're Back is actually a reskin of a Japanese game called Baby T-Rex. A game that is about a rad T-Rex who likes to skateboard and has a girlfriend who gets kidnapped by a scientist or something. For those of you who are not aware of your rad 90s characters, you should know this is a particular archetype. See Titus the Fox, the leather jacket skateboarding fox who has to rescue his girlfriend from an Arabian sheik. Yeah, it really is kind of a Dino Adventure Island. It really, really is. And I think, like, in Baby T-Rex, when you go down those hills, you pull out a skateboard, if I remember correctly. The T-Rex character does look, like, slightly different from this T-Rex character, which is superficially changed to at least kind of look like John Goodman's character. So, there's that, I guess. Now, that by itself would not make this strange, obviously. What makes it strange is that this is not going to be the only time they're going to do that. So, when this game was released in Sweden, it ended up being reskinned after the popular cartoon character in Sweden called Bamse. Now, Bamse is a Swedish cartoon character of the same name who's known as the world's strongest bear. And he basically fights evil capitalists. It actually is a very socialist cartoon. To the point they actually had a lot of controversy with things they had to say about Chairman Mao Zedong of China. That maybe is not really relevant here, but it's kind of funny to me. But yeah, he would fight evil capitalists and whatnot, and he would do so by eating his grandmother's special honey, which when he would eat her honey, he would get super duper strong. He was basically like the Swedish bear version of Popeye. You joke, Gumakumu says many landlords were upset, but I think he literally does fight against landlords. So, this honey is very, very special because while... Oh, we go all the way back to level 1. That is very cool. This honey is very, very special because only Bamse can eat it. Anybody else who eats it gets a stomachache for 3 days. Now, this is a very, very long-running cartoon. It's been airing in Sweden in one form or another since 1966. And it even relatively recently had an animated movie, like a major theatrical production, in the, 2010s, I believe. That involves evil capitalists stealing his honey. And his grandmother. It's pretty great. Yeah, I actually want to watch a little bit of Bamse. He seems kind of interesting. Now, this is not, once again, not the only time, though, this game is going to be reskinned, because guess what? This game gets reskinned for the Australian markets as well, as a game called Aggrosor. Aggrosor is just confusing, though, because Aggrosor is a game where you basically play as a caveman who skateboards. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot else that's different about that, although the box art for it is fantastic. I really, really love the box art. It is quite interesting looking box art. And finally, there was an attempt that I'm not sure if it was successful or not. I got conflicting information whether or not it was. That in the United Kingdom and PAL regions in general, this was going to be reskinned after another property. This time, a children's British broadcasting show called, well, after skits that were on various children's British broadcasting corporation shows, called Ed the Duck. Once again, I don't know if that version was ever released, but there are at least plans for it. So yeah, in total, 4 successful times this game was reskinned, or at least had different forms. And then a 5th attempt as well. So yeah, just rather strange. Now, as far as my verdict on this game so far, I think this game has some decent ideas. It seems well programmed from the fact how fast it moves and whatnot. And the graphics are clear. I cannot imagine this looks good on the Game Boy screen. And the controls, unfortunately, are very momentum-based and very mushy because of that. So I simply cannot imagine that this is a very good game to play. I'm not really sure how long this game is either. A lot of Game Boy games from 92, 93 were pretty short as far as platforms concerned. See Felix the Cat and Kirby's Dream Land, which were 5 or 6 stages in total. But given that we haven't gone to, the future in New York, I wouldn't be surprised if they had somewhere around 12 stages or so. I wonder if I'm just not supposed to jump there. And just let momentum take me. Let's try that. Ow. So that's one thing I am going to give it credit for. It does seem to be rather meaty as far as a video game is concerned for the Game Boy. I think we do need to jump. I think we're not going to make it if we... Oh, no, we did! What do you know? I'm very surprised, honestly. Although we need to be very careful that we don't get absolutely wrecked here. Also, I will say I actually don't hate the music. I think the music's pretty good. Oh, so you can't duck and shoot, so it's very hard to hit those ants. Oh, man. Okay, we can take one more hit. There we go. There we go. Ooh. Getting stations are a decent length, too. Yeah, so... I'm gonna give We're Back credit for that. Here we go. Once again, not convinced it's good. Alright, I want to get to another... Oh, no! I'm pretty sure there's no checkpoints in here, too. I'm very certain there isn't. Yeah, we are right at the start. You keep the amount of... I presume those are cards. Maybe they're juice boxes. I don't know. It looks like you keep the amount that you had before, though, so that's good. Trying to remember where that one dinosaur we have to worry about is. Oof. I think it's coming up here. Yeah, well, we took a hit anyways. Speedrunning tech. There we go. We're learning the speedrun strats for this game. You probably never thought that we were going to do speedrun strats for this, but it turns out we are. One thing that there is to say about the graphics of this, the character being reskinned is this big-eyed dinosaur. This Homer Simpson-looking dinosaur. This is Homer Simpson as a dinosaur. He does not match all the other dinosaurs that are in this game. Like, whatever this thing is. So... Oh, man. Got caught. Oh, no! Oh, my. Okay, we're gonna try to get through the stage, and then after that, we will probably move on. I keep getting caught by that. I guess credit given where credit is due. They do try to lead you. It's not particularly successful, but they do attempt to lead you. I don't know why my my counter's flashing there. That's what you get when you try to do the speedrun strats. Bad things happen to you. Hey, I finally made it that time. And we got a game over. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next game, shall we? And that is going to be the first of a not insignificant amount of Simpsons games that we're going to be playing. This is Simpsons Bart versus the Juggernuts. A game with significantly worse music, by the way. Developed by Imagineering Incorporated and published by Acclaim Entertainment. Acclaim being a major publisher of Simpsons games, with a couple of notable exceptions that were done by Konami. This is not good. It was released, I believe, in 1991 or 1992. My apologies. My apologies on that. This is a game that's kind of like a mini-game collection. It actually reviewed pretty well. Also, you do have to see the credits every time you boot up the game. And it has a story behind it. Live from the Springfield Arena. Welcome to another edition of Juggernauts, the show that invites you to win big prizes by taking on a series of pumped-up hulking brutes, and takes no legal responsibility for any injuries you might sustain. I'm your award-winning host, Ken Brockman, and with me as guest commentator, Dr. Marvin Monroe. So who's our lucky challenger today? Bart Simpson, Kent. Bart weighs in at about 60 pounds and is just over 4 feet tall. And how big is our smallest Juggernaut? That would be Snarla, Kent. 6'2", 163 pounds of cat-like fury. That's actually pretty lean for 6'2", to be honest. Given I'm 5'8", 170. Meow! Good luck, Bart. Let's play week 1. You have to get a certain amount of money each week in order to advance the game. And if I remember correctly, it starts you off with just a limited amount of events. So yeah, let's check this out. So, I'll have to admit, they do a pretty, decent job with trying to, like... Okay, that's how you do that. With, trying to, like, show off different, like Simpsons characters and whatnot, and just, like, have, like, sort of, like, a different vibe to it. You're gonna jump down? Okay, you're not. Oof. Okay, you cannot jump diagonal, unfortunately. Alright, well, we did very, very bad there. Alright. So we got 0 money there. Good on us! Let's try another event here. Captain Murdock's Skateboard Bash and Crash. So, all these events involve characters from the Simpsons lore, although I don't remember Captain Murdock as well, like, at all. In my testing, I could not successfully do this event. Oh, hey, I did it. Alright. That boy's certainly no pushover. The channel is young anger in a positive way. I recommend a good battle now and then as a healthy way to communicate. Alright, how much money do we get? Sorry, Bart, I'm afraid the game's over for you today. Alright, well that went well. So, we get to play this again. I guess in the meantime while we play this, let's talk a little bit about this game. So, Bart vs. the Juggernuts is a bit of an odd game, depicting Bart Simpson going up against a bunch of kids that are much bigger than him in weird challenges. And like some of these challenges involve like other characters again, what's like Barney Gumble's in this, so you can't have to have like a wrestling match with them and whatnot. The game itself was developed by Imaginary Incorporated, a company founded by ex-Activision employees, including David Crane, a legendary programmer and designer responsible for games such as Pitfall, for instance. We'll be talking about him more when we get to such games like A Boy and His Blob and whatnot. But needless to say, his studio was owned by Acclaim and was responsible for quite a few games published by that company. Now, there's not a huge amount to talk about with this game. These cutscenes are unskippable, by the way. Which is very unfortunate. So what we're going to do is we're going to hyper-focus on something very, very silly. You're probably not going to think it's a big deal, and I would not blame you for that. But I found it very interesting. And I'm talking about Bart Simpson's shirt on the box art here. Because he has a blue shirt. Bart's shirt color is supposed to be red, or like a kind of a dark, like reddish orange. Now, this might seem like an incredibly silly thing to focus on. And to be fair, you wouldn't be wrong. You would not be wrong at all. Woo! Scored. Okay, great. And we have to go back. Okay. So, Bart's shirt, once again, is supposed to be red. But in a lot of merchandise that he did, that was done for The Simpsons, his shirt color ended up being blue for one reason or another. And there's a lot of theories as to why this is. Yeah, sometimes it just flips and you get messed up there. So, this seems like an incredibly, once again, this seems like a very, small and insignificant thing, but believe it or not, it kind of isn't. Which is kind of insane to say. I'm trying my darndest to actually, pay attention to this ridiculous game, and shocked that I'm doing as well as I am. Let's see if we can't get through this real quick. We'll continue on with this. Sure. Oh, jeez. Oh, it actually worked out well. Get down here. Darn. Okay, well, we're down. So yeah. So Bart's blue shirt has a really, really weird history behind it. So let's get to start, just from the beginning, for those of you who don't know. The Simpsons is a long-running animated sitcom that still is on the air to this day. Incredibly influential and often quoted, even to this day. It got its series, it started as part of a series of shorts for the Tracy Ullman Show in the 80s before it made its jump to its own dedicated show in the 90s. Well, in 1989, and it continued on to the 90s. And it became one of the biggest things ever to grace television. Now, in the early days of The Simpsons, Fox Broadcasting wanted to merchandise the hell out of this show because it was a rare success for the Fox network. And they zeroed in on the one character they thought was going to be the breakout character of the show, which is Bart Simpson, the 10-year-old hellion of the Simpsons family. So Bart would go on to appear in so many Simpsons games. So many incredibly bad Simpsons games. 9 in total. Now, some of these games would depict him correctly in a red shirt. some others in a blue shirt, and for some reason, Bart's nightmare would have him in a green shirt, because why not? So why a blue shirt, and why is this so important? Well, to answer that question, nobody really knows. And it's never been officially explained. And the fact that it hasn't been explained has led to a lot of speculation as to why that is. There we go. So the idea behind this, one of the rumors, was that this was a deliberate thing by Fox. The idea being that if you saw a Bart Simpson's doll and it had a red shirt, it was probably a bootleg. And so they knew that how to spot fake merchandise, whereas the blue merchandise was actually secretly the official merchandise of the show. Another rumor was to help distinguish him more from his sister when it came to like merchandise that was on the shelves, because his sister Lisa has the same color skirt as it does his shirt. So that was like the huge rumor behind it, and we still didn't get there. You have to basically do perfect to start out with this, huh? Jeez. So that was always the rumor. Now, the real answer is probably a lot more boring, unfortunately. And the reason, and the theory behind that is why this might be actually just kind of like a boring explanation, has to do with Bart's appearance on the Tracy Ullman Show. His very first appearance. On those shorts, he had a blue shirt. And so when the official art was made for the pitch for The Simpsons, he was still in the blue shirt. And so when that was the art that was sent out to a lot of merchandising companies, you know, people who were making dolls, action figures, and whatnot. And so to adhere to the product, they put Bart in a blue shirt. So that's probably why this is kind of disappointing if that is actually the truth, but, you know, guess that's just how it works sometimes, right? Regardless, though, Bart's blue shirt became kind of an in-joke among Simpsons staff and fans. Like, Homer comments on it in one episode. And even in like an episode of Futurama, which is Matt Groening's other popular animated show, it has a joke about Bender grabbing a blue-shirted Bart doll. And, like, you would still see blue-shirted Bart, like, up through 2018 in the Simpsons comics. And on official merchandise through, like, 1997. So this weird errors just continued to occur regardless. And that's kind of the story behind Bart's blue shirt. Kind of a silly thing to talk about, I know, but, you know, sometimes you gotta talk about silly things when you're playing Bart versus the Juggernuts. Oh, you have to not hit the shield. Interesting. And you have absolutely no idea where the shield placement is going to be. This game actually reviewed very well. Like, I couldn't see that pizza slice. Like, how was I going to avoid that? Yeah, so far, my opinion on this game is actually very poor. You have to basically play perfectly in order to get through, like, the first couple of mini-games. Like, I might as well just reset here. But, you know, we're not going to. We're going to continue playing. And yeah, it seems very, very unforgiving. You can't skip any of these cutscenes. Yeah, I'm not sure I would recommend this game to anybody. Which makes it very, very surprising it reviewed as well as it did. Or at least supposedly did. I think it averaged like 3.5 out of 5 stars, essentially. Oh, jeez. But hey, you know. The standards for Game Boy games were kind of poor back in the day. And like that, like... That's a hard thing to overcome there. Because it doesn't always flip, I've noticed. Paid actors, exactly. Dastardly paid actors. Yeah, see, like, right there, it didn't switch. Like, what am I supposed to do about that? I guess if it's doing that, if I just jump on the... If I end up jumping back down, it'll stop it from flipping. And I'm just supposed to rely on that. Well, either way, I'm getting the hang of this game, so... I don't think that should have worked, but it did, and I'm not going to complain. Yeah. Okay, we're kind of getting this minigame down pretty well, so that's good. Okay, so we need to go this way. Oof. Oh, boy. Well... Yeah, so definitely did not do good enough here. Real quick, actually, I want to look up if there's any cheat codes for this and see if we can't see any of the later stages real quick. So, if you just permit me to do that real quick. Because that might be nice to actually see if there's anything particularly crazy later on. It doesn't look like there are. Well, that's okay. Perhaps we're done with this game. Perhaps we're done with this game. We'll go ahead and move on to our final game for the evening. Perhaps that's what we should do. And that game's going to be Bionic Battler. A game that is not good, but it's interesting. So, Bionic Battler, it is a 1 or 2 player game. You play this via link cable. And it is a maze first-person shooter. You play as either the Valiant series or Sirius series robots, and you basically fight the other type of robot in a first-person maze. This game is developed by Copious Systems and published by Electrobrain and released in 1992. We'll play as the Sirius robots, because they're kind of stronger. You can select what level you have, which kind of influences the AI and the size of the maze. And you have these cutscenes that, once again, you cannot skip at all. So, hope you enjoy them. Anyways, go switch our music here. We got Japan. Whatever C and W is. Oh, probably country western. Or disco. We're gonna go with disco. I think disco sounds the best. Alright. So yeah. So, this is interesting in that it is very technically, and I really do mean very technically, a first-person game for the Game Boy. Now, the objective of this game is that you're fighting in 3-on-3 matches, and you are trying to destroy the other 3 robots of the enemy team. If you get destroyed, it's game over. It doesn't matter if you still have teammates alive, by the way. Now, there is a story in this game that I think is manufactured for the US version. And the idea being that there's these giant robots called Bionic Battlers that, once invented, basically allowed all, like, menial labor and, like, kind of, like, menial task and manual labor to be taken over by these robots. And so, humanity got a little bit lazy. And then a techno-organic race shows up to basically free them. They're like, how dare you? How dare you control our brethren and enslave them? And so, you basically have to get into these Bionic Battlers and prove that humanity is worth keeping around by beating these alien robots. I'm fairly certain that this, once again, I'm fairly certain that this was just manufactured for the United States market. So I bet you in Japan this is probably just robots fight each other and it's cool. But who knows? We're still missing one. And I don't know where this robot is. Where are you, robot? Oh, back? Oh, and dead. Got absolutely messed up here. Let's try level 2 again. So this style of game is known as a first-person maze game. Maze games being a part of a pretty, like, large family of games that include, like, top-down mazes and whatnot. First-person mazes like this, among others. Giving you an example of another type of maze game, like a top-down maze game, Pac-Man is a top-down maze game. So, not an uncommon thing. Did you get him? I don't... Oh. Oh boy. It said right! There we go. Oh boy, this is not good. Oof. Get absolutely wrecked in this. So yeah, these maze games existed, and first-person maze games were one type of these maze games. Now, maze games were interesting because you could do a first-person perspective while having relatively little overhead for whatever game console you're using. So for something like the Game Boy, it kind of makes sense to do. Like, it's not the world's worst idea to have a maze game in it. Kind of give you that first-person experience without having to do too much with it. And this was, for a while, a very popular way to just do video games in general. A lot of early video game adaptations of Dungeons & Dragons, for instance, use this perspective. Games like Legend of Mystical Ninja have minigames that use this as well. And even the classic franchise Bomberman got an immediate sequel that was called 3D Bomberman. Oof. We're just getting absolutely wrecked here. So it was kind of like all over the place. Now, the first-person maze game appears to be a game developed in 1974 called Maze War. So this goes way, way back to the 70s. This was developed by Steve Coley, Greg Thompson, and Howard Palmer at NASA's Ames Research Center in California. And basically, they programmed this on the Almax, I believe it's actually IMLAX, PDS-1 computer. And you basically play as an eyeball, and you can fight other eyeballs that are controlled by other human characters. Because what they would do is they would link these machines up, and one person would be on one computer, and another that was networked to another computer would be on there, and that's how you did multiplayer. So on top of being the first maze game, first-person maze game, it was also one of like the first multiplayer games, which is kind of neat. Like obviously, like stuff like Pong was, or I guess Video Ping Pong in this case, were out before this, but still, really, really neat. Now, this game was shared among multiple universities back in the day. Because really, those are the only places where like computers were readily available, whereas like the various like university research laboratories. And what happened was something really, really special. So these research laboratories were hooked up via ARPANET, the precursor to the internet. And what happened is that these games, particularly Maze War, could be played over ARPANET. So Maze War also has the distinction of being one of the very first online multiplayer games, which is kind of wild when you think about it. In 1974, we already had online gaming. I mean, it was only accessible to a few people, but still, that's kind of wild when you really think about it. Now, once again, most of these games were very, very basic, right? You can only, like, move in cardinal directions and whatnot. Take control, so left moves you left, right moves you right. You press up on the D-pad to move forward, down on the D-pad to move backwards. You know, nothing too crazy, right? Lucky, huh? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Jeez. Stack up there. So, yeah, very, very limited. But, like, as soon as, like, 1987 rolled around, developers were already experimenting with giving players, like, full directional movement in these 3D mazes. So, with games such as Mini Maze, which is one of the, like, earliest first-person shooters, you would have a maze-like structure like this, but you could actually turn in more degrees rather than just cardinal directions and whatnot. And actually do things like shoot around corners and what have you. Mini Maze itself has a very, very interesting legacy we're not going to get into. Mostly because we're going to be playing more or less a spiritual successor later in form of Baseball 2000. But it was experiments like this that started to bring us what you could kind of consider to be the first true, well, first-person shooters. Because games like this would eventually, like, evolve into Wolfenstein 3D, which would evolve into Doom, which would evolve to Quake, which would lead to Unreal, which would lead to Half-Life, which would lead to Call of Duty to where we are today. So, while Bionic Battler really can't say that it, you know, moved the industry forward as far as first-person shooters, it is part of a genre that itself was the earliest predecessor to the first-person shooter genre as we know today. Which I think it's safe to say the first-person shooter genre is still one of, if not the biggest genre that exists. So, you know, very, very interesting legacy that's associated with this game. Now, as far as how I feel about this game in particular, I think this game is kind of terrible. Doesn't seem like a particularly good way to, like... I think the idea is that you're supposed to, like, kind of catch... You're supposed to catch these enemies, like, by surprise. And do, like, hit-and-run tactics, which I'm not doing. Oh, God. We got caught. We got caught. That's very true. In 1992, games like Wolfenstein 3D were already out. And yeah, Doom would come out the following year. So, like, this game is very, very antiquated by, I think, most standards. Let's go to level 5. Let's just check level 5 out. I'm probably gonna get bodied because of that, but whatever. But, like, when you think about, like, the Game Boy, it sort of makes sense why they would go with this, right? Like, I don't think anybody's going to accuse the Game Boy of being a powerhouse that could do first-person shooters. So it makes sense why, the developers would go with this, right? That being said, though, when we see Baseball 2000, it's actually going to turn out that first-person shooters are totally possible on the Game Boy. Although, they don't exactly run well, so... I mean... Maybe they don't actually run particularly good. Oh boy, missed. There we go. You gotta really just rely on hit-and-run tactics. Oof. So, yeah. When I think about, like, first-person maze games, I always think about the one that was like the minigame for Legend of Mystical Ninja. I always thought that was, like, really, really cool. Let's go for the silent experience on this one. Like, I remember, like, I thought it was, like, a lot of fun actually, like, going through that maze and discovering different objects you could find and whatnot. Like, this game, unfortunately, just feels very, very frustrating with how easy it is to get absolutely bodied by these different robots and whatnot. Mistake. How's this thing still alive? Did it even take damage? Also, looks like, yeah, you have 6 we have to deal with here. Where are you? Come on. Ooh, boy. Ooh, boy. Yeah, I'm getting just absolutely wrecked here. Alright, well, we got that one, though. Although, I don't like our odds, I have to say. Oof, and dead. Yeah, not, We're not doing so hot with this one, I would say. Yeah, so I think for today... while we had a lot of interesting games to play, there was definitely one standout game, and that was Hatris. I think the rest of these games, while perhaps interesting, are not very good. There we go. There we go. Hey, we beat level 1 again. Let's go get our $1 whole again. I like this guy's nice, trees and whatnot that he has. I just love it. You get $1 whole. I feel so special. So it should be mentioned that Electro Brain and Copia Systems are a common duo, and they're going to both develop and release quite a few games, respectively, for the Game Boy. So, we're definitely going to be talking about them a little bit more at some point. Let me assure you. I don't know if that actually hit him or not. There we go. Alright, we got one. I'm actually trying to use strategy for once on this. Dangerous, I know. Oh god, trying to lure them up here. They are just simply not biting. I would love to be able to beat level 2. Oh man, he just came right at me. Come on. It was waiting for me around the corner. Waiting for me right around the corner. I had no chance on that one. Had absolutely no chance. Well, I think we've probably seen as much of this game as we possibly need to. And I think that's probably what we're going to end up calling it. So, this episode was a little bit shorter than I think they normally would be. But that's okay. Sometimes that occurs, Sometimes sometimes you say everything you need to say about games like Bionic Battler. But I do appreciate everybody joining us for today. And of course, we'll always, as always, we will be back next week. And next week, we are going to be talking about a couple of odd games. Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. Sports Illustrated for Kids, The Ultimate Triple Dare. The Real Ghostbusters. And a weird game called Quarth. But once again, that's going to be for next time. I will say, actually, this is also going to be our first stream where we're going to have more bad games played than good. So hopefully this will be an outlier. But that's all right. Thank you all again for joining us. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow with another stream as we play through Kirby's Superstar using zero copy abilities. So hopefully I'll see you all then. Take care, y'all.